This is Shockwave News Live. You can find me online at shockwavenews.com and, of course, twitter.com/Shockwave News 1. Also, I'm on Spreaker.com/Shockwave News. And, of course, youtube.com/Shockwave News Live. Now let's get right into the news. I got an article here from bigleaguepolitics.com. That's bigleaguepolitics.com. The article is entitled, the article was put out today, June 4th, 2020. The headlines in bigleaguepolitics.com. The Defense Secretary of the White House will let cities burn and mobs loot without military intervention. This is what the Defense Secretary, Mark Esper, made it clear of the Trump administration, that he will not be intervening with federal forces to put down mobs in cities that have been on fire for days, that leftist riots and strife has caused. Very interesting. Mark Esper, as you know, has only been aboard the Trump administration. I believe it's a little under a year, maybe barely over a year. He stepped in to run the Secretary of Defense when they let Mad Dog Mattis go. Obviously, they didn't like Mad Dog Mattis too well, and he clashed with President Trump. And, of course, the prior administration with Obama, he also clashed with the Obama administration and clashed with Obama. He was let go then. So, anyhow, Mark Esper stepped in and has been there for a little while now, Secretary of Defense. And then the article goes on to say, Esper started his press conference by bemoaning the horrible crime committed by police officer Derek Chauvin against the article says the serial felon George Floyd in Minneapolis. The streets said all the cops involved should be held accountable for his murder. With great sympathy, I want to extend the deepest condolences to the family and friends of George Floyd, and for me, the department, Esper said during a briefing at the Pentagon. So we know what happened to George Floyd. This Derek Chauvin, however you pronounce it, I guess it's Chauvin, Eric Chauvin, or Derek Chauvin, rather, put his knee to George Floyd there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he put his knee on the back of his neck, and ultimately that ended up causing the death of George Floyd. And here we are right now with riots in most of the big cities across the United States, riots, looting, stealing, vandalism, arson. They're setting fire to anything and everything they can. These Antifa and these Black Lives Matter groups, these aren't peaceful protesters. These are people bought and paid for from George Soros and all of his cronies. So it's just like anything else in life. You have to have a financier, a financial backer, whatever you want to call the person. This is who George Soros is, and he's the type of person that finances terrorist organizations in order to bring down the USA in any way, shape possible he can. So let's go on and conclude the article here, continue reading. Racism is real in America. We must do our very best to recognize it, to confront it, to eradicate it, he added, echoing Black Lives Matter talking points. Esper made it clear there are no plans to unleash the military on the streets to restore order. He claimed that the emergency going on right now did not indicate for the need for this kind of response. Esper is apparently content to let the streets burn, property be destroyed, and law enforcement to be run down in the streets like dogs without intervening. Well, I think this article via bigleaguepolitics.com, I think that Secretary Esper, that might be a slight exaggeration in the article here. But again, that's only my humble and personal opinion. I don't think that he wants the military to intervene, but I don't think he wants the police to be ran down like dogs and anything else, and all cities to be completely dismantled and demolished under these groups rioting and looting and stealing right now, BLM and Antifa. I don't think that at all. I just think that there's a time and a place, and I think, personal opinion again, feelings aside, I think that there might be a reason why Secretary Esper doesn't want to do this. There might be a little bit of politics involved. I'm almost sure there's a little bit of politics involved. I don't necessarily agree with that. Governors, just for those of you listening out here, governors have complete control of their state. They have the ability to call up the National Guard. When things get out of hand, they can declare a state of emergency like they do down here under Governor DeSantis, a state of emergency. At that time, the governor has limited powers, but he does have power in order to declare a state of emergency, like when, I'll give you a classic example. We're in hurricane season June 1st through November 30th. Hurricane season already started. If there's a hurricane coming this way, say, for example, I'm near Orlando, Florida area. If there's a hurricane coming near Orlando, Florida, which would be kind of hard because we're somewhat in the middle of the state, or at least the north central part of the state, Governor DeSantis could declare a state of emergency. At that time, then he declares a declaration of a state of emergency. He has certain powers given to him during that time of emergency to deploy the National Guard wherever he sees fit, wherever the emergency happens to be. This is the authority that the governors have. Now, in a case such as what's going on right now, rioting, looting, et cetera, all over the United States, and total destruction, and even people are getting killed and murdered. If a governor does not declare a state of emergency, and cops, law enforcement, tries to intervene, and they are outmanned in this case, maybe not outgunned, but outmanned, and they do not wish to shoot to kill. In other words, they use rubber bullets, they use tear gas, they use pepper spray, they might even use clubs when people are getting violent and throwing bricks and different things like that. A brick is a weapon. Anything that is tossed in the air can be considered a weapon by law enforcement. So law enforcement in a lot of these democratic-controlled states is choosing restraint, not to declare a state of emergency. Well, they're choosing not to do that because they want to prove a point, and then they want to help crash the economy in that state, in that city, so that there's thousands and thousands of people out of work. So then they can go back and they can point to Trump and they can say to President Trump, and they can say, well, your economy's no good here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, it was good all the way around the United States. The economy was fantastic at one time. But they can say, no, the economy tanked, and that's because these Democratic governors and mayors didn't declare a state of emergency. They didn't have enough law enforcement to be able to combat the problem. They chose not to. They chose to let their own state tank as far as go down in flames. This is what they're choosing to prove a point in order to try to make things look as bad as possible for President Trump, and try to say to all the people in the state, there you go, the state burned and burned and burned, and President Trump and his Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, would not call out the National Guard to help us. And I want to point out again, it's not the federal National Guard or the military, in this case it'd be the Army. It would not be their responsibility as a first responder. It's only after the local, state, National Guard is deployed. Once they're deployed, then if they don't have enough manpower, then the governor can go to President Trump and say, hey, I need some help. Can you send in reinforcements? Yes, and then in that case, the president should lawfully, upon request of the governor, send in the military. And then you're sending in the big boys. You're sending in the Army, and things will get nasty real quick. I can tell you that right now, because the Army will not screw around or fuck around with people. They have logistics, CNC, command and control, and they establish what is the objective very, very quickly. Once the objective is established, we have the best military in the world. They're going to accomplish it. If the objective is to push back the rioters, thugs, and bums and everybody, that's what the objective will be. And they will go, and they will go quickly. Granted, they've not, again, these Democratic governors and Democratic mayors, like the mayor in Minneapolis, Minnesota, he's choosing to not call in the National Guard and to not call, because he's over his head, inexperienced. I don't know what the case is there. I've just looked at the case many times, and there just seems to be a lack of inexperience. It's like he wants Minneapolis, he wants Minnesota to burn to the ground, this mayor, this twisted Democratic mayor, for whatever reason, and that's something for another time and another topic. They have a death wish, and that's what they choose on doing. So let me get back to the article and finish. Esper made it clear, this is Secretary Esper here, Esper made it clear that there are no plans to unleash the military on the streets to restore order. He claimed that the emergency is going on right now did not indicate for the need of this kind of response. Esper apparently content to let streets, property burn, to be destroyed, and law enforcement to be run down, just like dogs. Okay, let me read on. The option to use active duty forces and law enforcement roles should not be used as a matter of last resort. Only the most urgent, dire situations. We are not in one of those situations now, Esper said. Esper should tell that to retired St. Louis police captain David Dorn, the 77-year-old man who was gunned down in the streets by rioting savages Tuesday morning. Well, my condolences to the Dorn family of Captain David Dorn. That's terrible what had happened. They say Black Lives Matter. Where are you now? You gunned down one of your own. Where the hell are you? The answer is they're nowhere to be found. The answer is all they want to do is riot, loot, steal, burn things down, arson. They don't care about people. The objective is to collapse the city, do as much destruction as possible, and to, in response to collapse in the city, this will tank the economy one by one. This is why they're deployed BLM, Black Lives Matter, and Antifa all over the United States to cause these riots. And as I said on my other podcast, there are thousands of thousands per week, per month, per year of people getting murdered. They're white people, there are black people. No riots up until this point. This was set up, this was a psyop, this was an operation that was pre-planned, I don't even want to say months, years in advance. This was pre-planned years in advance, probably 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years or more. Pre-planned in order to remove President Trump. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, there you go, shockwave news and that conspiracy BS and bullshit again. There you go. It's total bullshit. No, it's not. I have seen videos with my own eyes of pre-planned, pre-staged events where the mob would be rioting at. In other words, a location where there'd be empty police cars there just waiting to trash. There would be bricks laying right beside a bank or right beside a pile of bricks, just happen to be set there for just out of nowhere. They just show up out of nowhere so they can be thrown through bank buildings and windows and police stations and stuff like that. This is all set up, folks. Every damn bit of it, bought and paid for, financial backing through George Soros and company and friends in order to crash the United States, to crash the economy, and get President Trump out of office. That's what this is. This is crazy. It's unheard of. It's it just goes on and on and on. And the show never stops. The only time this will quell down is when President Trump, after he serves his second term, if everybody can make it through here, because they want him out. There's no doubt about it. These evil organizations want President Trump removed, and they'll do anything, I repeat, anything to remove President Trump. As far as George Floyd goes, my condolences to the Floyd family. But this was a psyop. This was somebody, they have a habit of doing that once in a while. One person will have to take a fall or be sacrificed so that they can pull off an event like this. They've done this with the Trayvon Martin. I can go on and on and on. They've done this with Rodney King going back years and years and years ago, probably a decade or two ago with the Rodney King beating, and they did all of that and started triggering riots all over. I mean, I can go on and on and on, all the way back to Martin Luther King Jr. when he was killed. So it's scary. It just declares it just goes on and on and on. And again, this will continue until they somehow, some way, somewhere remove President Trump from office. This will not end, folks. This will not end well. Expect more. Wouldn't even be surprised to see, and I'm not being negative at all. I just know what they're capable of doing. Don't be surprised to see maybe another coronavirus outbreak by or before the end of the year. Don't even be surprised to see a new outbreak of something. If it's not corona, it might be Ebola. I've gotten word, and there's substantial proof. Africa has another outbreak of Ebola going on in the Congo region. And you'll say, well, how does that relate to us? Well, it only takes just one. Look at China. China was infected from the Wuhan coronavirus. It only took just a couple people, and they landed obviously up there in Washington, Seattle, Washington, matter of fact, and then they started spreading all over. It was probably already here, they say, for months and months before it was even detected, the coronavirus. So it doesn't take a lot of people to spread a disease. One person can physically come in contact with easily 10 people, and each one of them 10 people go out and be in contact with 10 people, and there you go. You have 10 and 10, you have 100, you have 1,000, you have 10,000, you have 100,000, and that's how diseases spread. It only just takes one person, folks. And this is how they can do that. They already ran the trial run with Corona. They said that they had the whole world. Basically, they pulled the sham on the whole entire world. And we're dumb enough, most of us, not me, but most of us out here are dumb enough, and they fell for that bullshit. And that's what happened. So don't be surprised. Don't kid yourself. Round 3 is coming, and coming quick. Round 1 was the coronavirus. Round 2, George Floyd. Round 3, who knows what the hell they have planned. But guaranteed, before Trump gets reelected, if he even makes it, they're going to have more chaos, more destruction, more riots. They'll just be plain more bullshit. it's not going to end again until they try to and they successfully remove Donald J. Trump from the president, unfortunately. Okay, this is Shockwave News Live. If you like this podcast, like, share, subscribe. You can find me on Anchor. That's anchor.fm/Shockwave News. And, of course, twitter.com/Shockwave News and Shockwave News Live on my main website. And you can also find me on Spreaker. That's Spreaker.com/Shockwave News. This is Shockwave News, signing off.